Welcome to the Celebrate Brave podcast. I'm Nicole Church-Steinbach, your host and the International Bravery Coach for Women in Tech. I serve women all over the world to earn more money, create more opportunities, and thrive in the tech industry because tech needs all of us. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, brave people. Welcome to this episode of the Celebrate Brave podcast. And I just want to let you know I'm grateful for your time. Thank you. The other thing I'm super grateful about is listener feedback and questions. So, this is the call. I'm going to be answering questions in upcoming episodes. You got one? Pop it over. My email is nicole@tricksteinbach, all one word, .com. How do you spell that? TRICKSTEINBACH. And better, you come on over to the podcast notes and it's linked right there, along with my website and all other goodness. So I want to hear from you. Drive your questions on over. Pop them through. Because today I'm answering a repeated listener question. And that question is, how do I negotiate? One of the people who wrote in, it was just the best email. It basically says, I see you talk about pay increases and new salaries when clients step into new roles. So in 2021 alone, I had a client who doubled her income. I had a client who got a 12% increase when they were told there were going to be no increases that year. A client who increased her spot bonus by, I believe, 200%, 300%, was something like that, 2x, 3x, all through negotiation. Other clients who drove essentially their hourly wage because they negotiated fewer programs and projects, fewer responsibilities, more appropriate to their line. Clients who negotiated their promotions with obviously appropriate salary increases. It is not a promotion if you do not get a salary increase. That shit needs to stop. That's a whole nother podcast. Anywho, and this person wrote in and said, like, you talk about this, but I don't understand how. Okay, first thing, number one, it's not rocket science, genuinely. In fact, I know rocket scientists who don't know how to negotiate. And not because it's harder, but because we're never taught. We're taught all these crazy mathematical formulas, all these dates in history, but we're not taught how to have conversations that lead to results where everyone wins. So the first thing, I'm going to share with you the mindset, and then I'm going to share with you the framework. It has 4 steps. How to negotiate. Number 1, the mindset is win-win. If you go into a negotiation with a zero-sum mind, I win, they lose. You lose. No matter what comes out of that, you will always lose. You come out of every negotiation with a deeper relationship, a relationship with yourself and a relationship with whomever you're having this conversation. A negotiation is just a conversation. That's it. So you go in win-win. The second part of mindset is you go in with your cut line, with your minimum acceptable conversation. So you know what you want, but you also know where you just say no. So let's say you want to go in for 200. That's your like objective. It's like, oh my God, if I could earn 200 base salary, I'll say yes. And you know that anything below 150 is unacceptable. That's how you prepare. So you know your cut line. You know when you say no. Mindset has two parts: win-win in the conversation, in the solutioning of a difference of opinion, difference of offer and expectation, and you go in with your cut line. Anything below this is unacceptable, and I will say no. That's your mindset. Okay. The way you do this, the framework, it has 4 steps. Number 1, this is inside of the conversation. So I'm assuming you know how to figure out what salary you want. You know how to set up the meeting. You know how to get to the meeting. This is inside of the first conversation. You know that this conversation is just about the negotiation. You don't bring it up at the beginning of a working session and you don't tack it on of the end of a regular meeting with your manager. This is a unique meeting. Maybe I should add that to the framework. Anywho, I'm assuming you know how to do all of these things. So inside of the meeting, there are 4 steps. Number 1, show gratitude. Number 2, review value. Number 3, exchange numbers. And number 4, give agreement. Now, the give agreement part, it's going to trip you up. I want you to put a pin in it. We're going to get there. Okay. Number 1, this is the fastest part of the meeting. You show gratitude. So you start the meeting like this. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your commitment to this conversation. Or, hey, thanks a lot for starting this conversation. This is really important to me, and I know it's important to you too. You show gratitude. You show appreciation. Why? Because the first few seconds, they set the context for the rest of the meeting. Ground it in gratitude and appreciation. Connect. The second part is you review the value. So it sounds something like this. So first, I want to make sure we're on the same page. So I did a bunch of prep to get me ready for this conversation. I'm sure you did too. Would you like to first start with the value I bring to this team, the value I bring to the organization, or would you like me to go first? And then you share. So that means you come into this meeting with an entire list of all the ways you brought value, particularly in all the ways you brought value above and beyond what expectation is. Let me be very clear. Many tech companies have a 5-level gradings. The lowest one is needs improvement, which basically means you're in trouble. The second one is almost to expectation. The third one is meets expectations. The fourth one is exceeds expectations. And the fifth one is consistently exceeds expectations. So they'll have different names. But if you look at this from an expectation perspective, number 3 meets expectations. That is what you are being paid to do. The first and the second cannot meet expectations and below expectations, or when you're unable to do the job that you have for whatever reason. And the top 2 exceeds and consistently exceeds. That's when you're doing above and beyond your job, the job that you're paid to do. So when you're evaluating, when you're reviewing your value, when you're preparing for this meeting, you're taking everything above meets expectations and you're listing it out, all of it, with numbers, with names, with impact, with results. You walk in ready to review your value. No matter what the other person says, if they review it or if you review it, if they go first, you say, oh, well, here, let me add into this conversation. You do not argue with them. In fact, many times, the most common is people say, I actually did an entire review. I have so many notes here, and I forgot a few of those. Thank you. Thank you for bringing those up. So let me share what I actually gathered. And then you review the additional value that you brought into the role, into the company. Okay. This is the chunkiest part of the entire meeting. So the fastest part is followed by the chunkiest part because you got to make sure you're on the same page, in the same book, at the same time as the person on the other side. Because you get a pay increase, you get a promotion based on the value you've created. When you're on the same page, this is when you exchange numbers. And it sounds a little like this. So I'm so glad that we're on the same page about the value I've created. Now, I have some ideas, but I'm wondering, what are your ideas? What are you thinking? Give them the opportunity to respond. At this point, if they say to you, actually, I forgot, or it wasn't clear to me what a difference you were making. I was thinking 5%, but I think I really need to think about this. You stop the meeting. You say, oh, okay, yeah, I agree. Because 5, that seems a bit low for all the value that we just focused on. So, how about you go find out? Like, I totally support you figuring that out. How about we meet again in 5 days? How about we meet next week? Would that be enough time? You stop the meeting. You tell them that it seems low and you stop the meeting. Now, should your manager or should whomever it is say, well, what were you thinking? So before I go and I talk to HR and I figure all this out, like, what were you thinking? This is a wonderful time for you to say, well, based on all the value we went over, I agree with you. 5 is too low. I was actually looking at 15%, 20%. Let them respond. No matter how they respond, it's a data point for you. Don't chicken out. Remember, this is a win-win. You're highly prepared. You know what your goal is and you know what your cut line is. You've exchanged numbers. And then there is you give agreement. So let's take the best case scenario. Whomever it is says 20%. Yeah, we can do 20%. And you say, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's it. That's it. Thank you. Do not talk yourself out of it and do not fawn on this person. I'm so glad you appreciate me. I was so worried. I didn't think it would be this easy. Oh, and also do not start thinking, well, 20, I asked for 20. I got 20. Now I want 25. Now you may think that, you may feel it, let it go. You did your prep, you asked for 20 and you got it. Thank you. Let's take the middle ground. Whew. The other person says 20% seems kind of high. I'd have to run that through people. I just don't think I could get it for you. The answer is, I know we agree on the value I bring. And this is a really strong ask. So I hear you. When will you have the information? Let's set up a follow-up conversation. And you set up that follow-up conversation. And in the follow-up conversation, that is where you'll reach the next agreement, hopefully. Sometimes this takes 5 to 6 conversations. It took me an entire quarter one time. All right. Worst case scenario, you still give agreement. Hey, I know that you wanted 20. I can't give you anything more than 5. The answer. Thank you. Seems we have a really big impasse. We have a gap. I agree we have a gap. What do you think the next steps are? And I will tell you, your next steps is getting a coach and getting a new job. If you've brought 20% extra value, just in this example, whatever it is, and the person you're talking to agrees to you and the value you brought, and they're not going to pay you appropriately, you get a coach and you get a new job. You give agreement to yourself. You know your cut line, and you give agreement to yourself. All right. So now, if you are not in a company, you're actually salary negotiating, you're compensation negotiating for a new position. It's the same framework. It just sounds a little bit differently. Show gratitude. Hey, thank you so much for the offer, and I appreciate your time and continuing to talk about this. This is great. I want to make this work. I believe we'll find a solution. Set the tone. Number 2, review your value. This is what I bring. This is what you want. This is the market value. These are my expectations. Let's look at the entire compensation. Walk me through it one more time. Exchange numbers. So based on all of that, and we both want to make this work, your offer, it's about 10,000 below what I can accept. What in this package is going to make up for that? You can even say what you're offering is below what I can accept. I'm bringing a lot of value. What can you change to make this an acceptable offer? Silence. Silencio. Do not fill the time. Do not explain. And then the last step, give agreement. Excellent. I'm glad we could talk through this. I see how this package reflects the value I bring to this company. I am so excited to start. You'll see my signature shortly. Give agreement. And if it's not, you say, it is a bummer that we can't reach an agreement. I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you. And in the future, maybe it'll work out. You give agreement to yourself. It's not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's not teaching little children. It's just a conversation to solve a problem, to create a win-win. That's it. So you either deepen a relationship with someone else, or you deepen the relationship with yourself. And what could be better? Until next week, brave it up. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Celebrate Brave podcast. If you're ready to build your brave, to live a life you love, and create a career that matters to you, reach out. Together, we can spend time one-on-one to explore how I can help you. And until then, share this episode with people in your life, people who can join our movement to redefine brave, how we identify it, experience it, and celebrate it.